Pope Francis has often been described as one of the most progressive popes in modern history, and for good reason. Since his election in 2013, he has consistently challenged traditional norms within the Catholic Church and pushed for a more inclusive, compassionate, and socially conscious approach to faith. His leadership style, public statements, and policy shifts have marked a significant departure from the conservative stances of his predecessors, especially Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict XVI. Francis has made it clear that his vision for the Church is not one of rigid dogma and hierarchical authority, but rather one of mercy, humility, and service to the poor. He famously said, "I prefer a church which is poor and for the poor," a statement that immediately signaled his priorities would be different from those before him. This sentiment has translated into concrete actions, including his decision to live modestly in the Vatican guest house rather than in the opulent papal apartments, and his emphasis on reaching out to marginalized communities, LGBTQ+ individuals, divorced and remarried Catholics, refugees, and victims of abuse. One of the most notable aspects of Pope Francis's progressive stance is his approach to social issues. Unlike previous popes who often took hardline positions on topics like contraception, divorce, and homosexuality, Francis has adopted a more pastoral and understanding tone. In a 2013 interview with La Civiltà Cattolica, he famously asked, "Who am I to judge?" when speaking about gay individuals who are open to God. This simple phrase sent shockwaves through both Catholic and secular circles alike, signaling a shift toward a more compassionate and less judgmental approach to LGBTQ+ people. This openness has extended to other areas as well. Pope Francis has repeatedly criticized economic inequality and consumerism, calling capitalism a new tyranny, and urging world leaders to address the growing gap between the rich and the poor. In his 2015 encyclical Laudato Si, he issued a powerful call to action on climate change, framing environmental stewardship as a moral obligation for all Christians. The document was widely praised by scientists, activists, and even non-Catholics for its bold stance on ecological responsibility and sustainable development. In terms of internal church reform, Francis has also taken steps that many see as progressive. He has sought to decentralize power within the Vatican, giving more authority to local bishops and synods. He has called for greater transparency and accountability in financial matters, leading to investigations and reforms within the Vatican Bank. These efforts have sometimes put him at odds with conservative factions within the Church, particularly those who believe that doctrinal clarity should take precedence over pastoral flexibility. Another key area where Pope Francis has shown progressiveness is in his approach to migrants and refugees. He has spoken out forcefully against xenophobia and closed borders, emphasizing the Christian duty to welcome the stranger. In 2016, he visited the Greek island of Lesbos to meet with refugees fleeing war in Syria and Afghanistan, an act that was seen as deeply symbolic and politically charged. He has also welcomed displaced persons directly into the Vatican, offering them housing and support, an unprecedented move for a pope. Perhaps one of the most controversial aspects of Pope Francis's leadership has been his handling of the clergy sex abuse crisis. While critics argue that he has not done enough, Francis has taken more visible steps than any of his predecessors to address the issue head-on. He established the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors in 2014, though its effectiveness has been questioned due to limited authority and bureaucratic resistance. Still, his willingness to acknowledge the problem publicly and to hold some high-ranking officials accountable, including Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, has been seen as a step forward. His stance on divorced and remarried Catholics has also drawn attention. While the Church still upholds the indissolubility of marriage, Francis introduced a more lenient interpretation in his 2016 apostolic exhortation, Amoris Laetitia. He allowed for greater discretion among priests in determining whether such individuals could receive communion, depending on their personal circumstances. This move was met with fierce opposition from traditionalists, who accused him of undermining doctrine, but hailed by reform-minded Catholics as a sign of pastoral sensitivity. Despite these progressive tendencies, however, it is important to note that Pope Francis has not embraced every liberal cause or theological revision. He has maintained the Church's official teachings on abortion, euthanasia, and same-sex marriage, and has reaffirmed the male-only priesthood. His views on women's roles in the Church remain largely unchanged from past papacies, and while he has expressed openness to discussing the possibility of female deacons, no major changes have been enacted. Moreover, while Francis has been praised for his humility and accessibility, he has also faced criticism for his handling of certain controversies. For example, his refusal to definitively condemn former Chilean Bishop Juan Barros, who was accused of covering up sexual abuse by Father Fernando Caradima, drew international condemnation. Though he later admitted fault and removed Barros from office, the episode revealed tensions between his progressive image and the institutional inertia within the Church. Still, when viewed in the broader context of papal history, Pope Francis's tenure stands out for its emphasis on compassion, dialogue, and social justice. He has reached out to Muslims, Jews, and atheists alike, promoting interfaith understanding and religious tolerance. He has encouraged Catholics to engage in meaningful conversations with people of all backgrounds and beliefs, rather than retreating into isolationist piety. He has also taken a firm stand against clericalism, the culture of elitism and secrecy that has contributed to so many scandals in recent decades. In multiple speeches and documents, he has condemned this mindset, urging clergy to serve rather than dominate. His frequent references to a church that is poor and for the poor reflect his desire to return to the core message of Jesus: love, mercy, and service to others. At the same time, Francis has not shied away from controversy. He has criticized U.S. foreign policy, spoken out against the death penalty, and supported movements for racial and economic justice. His encyclical Fratelli Tutti 2020 laid out a vision for global solidarity and human fraternity, rejecting nationalism and advocating for universal human dignity. So, was Pope Francis really that progressive? The answer depends on how one defines progressive. If the term refers to someone who challenges entrenched traditions, listens to the voices of the marginalized, and prioritizes mercy over judgment, then yes, Pope Francis has embodied that definition throughout his papacy. But if progressivism implies a wholesale embrace of liberal secular values, then the answer is more nuanced. Francis remains firmly rooted in Catholic tradition, and while he may reinterpret or soften certain doctrines, he does not discard them entirely. What makes Pope Francis truly unique is not just what he believes, but how he communicates and lives out his faith. He washes the feet of prisoners, visits slums, and speaks plainly without the ornate language often associated with the papacy. His style is humble, his words are accessible, and his actions are grounded in a deep sense of spiritual and moral responsibility. In sum, Pope Francis represents a kind of progressive Catholicism, one that seeks to uphold doctrine while making room for nuance and inclusion, and real-world application. He has not revolutionized the Church overnight, nor has he abandoned centuries of teaching, but he has opened doors that many thought were permanently shut, and in doing so, he has reshaped the way millions of Catholics and non-Catholics view the role of religion in the modern world. Under his leadership, the Church has become more transparent, more empathetic, and more attuned to the suffering of the marginalized. Whether one agrees with all of his policies or not, there is no denying that Pope Francis has left a lasting impact, not only on the Catholic Church, but on the global conversation about faith, justice, and human dignity. His papacy has reminded the world that the Church can be both faithful to its teachings and responsive to the needs of the present day, and in a time of increasing polarization and division, his message of mercy, inclusion, and social responsibility continues to resonate far beyond the walls of Rome.